Hello. Welcome to this week's episode of Am I Going to Die? I'm Dr. Jeff Gallup, CEO and Medical Director of the ENT Institute, and I'm joined by Melissa Moritz.
Hello, and welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a great topic today.
We do. Very, very germane to everything going on today.
Yes. So, am I going to die from opioids?
Well, does everyone know what an opioid is? Right? We commonly call them painkillers, right? Narcotics. But there are different types of opioids, legal and illegal. And it is a huge issue across the United States. And we actually sit in the epicenter of a triangle of a hotspot in Georgia, in Alpharetta. That's where we're located now. So before we get to that, what is an opioid? It is a chemical that naturally exists to treat pain by blocking nerve impulses. But they're illegal, like heroin, and they're legal, like Percocets, right?
Oxycontin.
Oxycontin, which has gotten a lot of press too,
Yes.
because it can be dispensed for higher pain levels.
That's right. So today we'll be probably less fooling around, but more dispelling the myths and the facts around opioids, because it is a crisis. It's a crisis around the country, and it's a crisis specifically in this triangle where we are in Georgia right now. So tell us a little bit about helping people dispel some of these myths as far as it's the only way to seek relief from pain.
Well, it isn't, but opioids have their place. So let's talk about the upside. They can be used, but used judiciously. That is, prescribed by a physician for temporary pain relief. That's what opioids are for. They're good for temporary pain relief, but not long-term pain relief necessarily. And that's why we have a specialty called pain medicine. Pain medicine, we refer patients out to from the ENT Institute who require long-term pain management. But for short-term pain management, someone who has had a tonsillectomy, somebody who has had nasal surgery, any kind of surgery we do at the ENT Institute, we prescribe them pain medication. Why? Because they deserve it, right? And generally it's short-lived, short-used. So used appropriately, it's fine. So why do we have a crisis? Well, because people continue to take them and they're not supervised. And of course, if they're illegal, that's just a whole another ball of wax, which is where most of the crisis comes from.
That's true. So one of the myths is it's only a big problem in big cities, like New York, Chicago, LA. Those are the top 3 cities in the country.
Well, it's just because they have more people there,
Well,
I think.
That's right.
And we're in a part of a country that probably has less than 1 million people in it, and it's, the triangle here is an epicenter for it. So it's all over the nation. It's just not in the large cities. It's associated with the large cities because of the vagrants and homelessness and mental illness and that you find in these large cities. But no, it can be anywhere.
Here's another big myth. It can never affect anybody I know. It's somebody else's problem. It's from a different class of society type of thing. What do you think about that?
Well, no one intends to be addicted, ever. They want the experience of how it makes you feel. Somewhat euphoric, you don't care, pain relieved, but it's the state of mind, the chemical in the brain. That's what it does. It changes how you feel. It makes you feel better, less stressed, and people like that.
How quickly would somebody become addicted to it? So if, doctors are still allowed to prescribe it.
Yes, and we do, but we monitor it. I used to say I sent 2 or 3 people to rehab every year. I don't know that I did, but I knew because they wanted more prescriptions, right? And we have a limit amount that we will prescribe. Most practices do. Other than that, you need to refer to pain management because that's where you're going to find these people. Because people do need pain management. And I think what happens, it's just easier to take opioids and all of a sudden you take them too long, meaning prior to going to pain management, who can use other means to treat you, topical creams or electrostimulation, non-narcotic medications as well. But it just is easy to just call the doctor and get another prescription.
So, okay, on that topic, how about the myth? Tell us if this is true or fact. True or fact? Myth or fact? Sorry. If I experience withdrawal from an opioid, I'm addicted.
Not true. right? Because you would expect that in somebody who has maybe had head and neck surgery that's taking medications for 2 or 3 weeks. They may sometimes require more, but then sometimes they need to come off of them.
What if the reverse? What if my dosage needs to be increased? Does that mean I'm addicted?
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
It means if you take it for a longer period of time and you develop tolerance to it, then increasing it is a sign to you that you are headed that direction.
Right.
So first you get, intolerance, meaning you need more.
Okay. So it seems to be like a fine line there.
You have to pay attention, and the problem is the way people become addicted, whether it's legal or illegal, is because of the way it feels, and they keep doing it past the point that now they need more, and they're hooked on it. When they're hooked on it, no one wants to stop using it. Why? Because it makes them feel good, and that leads to the addiction is when you just crave it, you look for it, you cannot possibly live without it. Intolerance is something that can be managed, and withdrawal is something you would have if you were taking pain medication for a month or so. You would start limiting the amount of the narcotic that you take, because you can get the same symptoms, heart racing, a little sweaty, you're anxious. Those are signs of that, of withdrawal.
Just signs of life. But what about, you just touched on 3 big words: tolerance, dependence, and addiction. Are those all the same thing?
No, they're grades. So tolerance is kind of the first stage. You take them. If you take an opioid and you cannot take it and you're fine, great, you have no tolerance.
Okay.
You're taking an opioid and all of a sudden the amount you're taking is not working, so you have to increase the amount you take. That's tolerance. Okay. Dependence is when you really will have withdrawal symptoms unless you take it, right? Then fine, addiction is you seek it. I mean, it is a part of your life. The chemistry of the brain has changed then. I mean, that's why people kill for opioids, or they do things they would normally do for opioids, because they are truly addicted. It becomes part of the chemistry of who they are.
Okay, so with this one being, ENT Institute, we're cradle to grave, right? We use that a lot. So pediatrics all the way through seniors. But being an older adult, I have a tonsillectomy or I have sinus surgery. Should I be fearful if a physician prescribes them for me as a pain reliever? Like, should I go running for the hills and say, no way, or do I need to trust the physician?
No, but that's a new era of management for surgeons, and most of us are doing pretty well at managing those. Listen, as we age, we tend not to tolerate any medication well. But if you start adding pain medication to current medications they're taking, it can be overwhelming. So there are some drugs that we just don't prescribe as much, sleeping medications too, because older adults don't tolerate it as well. So people need to be educated. The physicians certainly are educated, or should be, but it is a buyer beware. I mean, you have to be very judicious. But people that need short-term pain medication, yes, you should be able to take it. Do not fear it.
Contrary to that, are they the most effective drugs for the chronic pain relief?
No. No, for chronic pain relief, there are other methods. In fact, the science of chronic pain management is a specialty field, and that's where people who need long-term pain management should be. Generally, these doctors are anesthesiologists who specialize in management of pain, and they can manage pain with some narcotics, some anti-inflammatories, some devices, some that are implantable, and therapies as well. So physical therapy comes into play. You can do, there are things like dry needling.
Right.
So there are a lot of modalities, but the key is to stop the patient before they become addicted.
Okay. So we've gone through kind of the education on opioids, what they are, and the drug, and how you can be addicted to it. But how about detoxing? Can you self-detox from this?
Well, you can, as long as you're not addicted, right?
Okay.
I mean,
so
once
let's
you're
say
addicted,
you are addicted.
Then you're going to need help, because your body's craving. You change the chemistry of your mind, the brain itself. So you're going to need some help, and it's hard when you deny that you have a problem, right? If you, whether it's alcohol or drugs of any sort, anything can be an addiction, and you can deny that it is a problem. You can tolerate, you can do it, but you can't.
Right. A lot of people think that they have the willpower to stop.
Well, and I would say that there are a handful of people who can do it, but it is small. I mean, I have a friend who was addicted to heroin when he was overseas in the Korean War, and I mean, he just came back and didn't take it. But did he go through withdrawals? Yes, he
Wow.
did. But he's a strong enough personality, he could do that. But that is the rare exception. Plus, why go through painful rehab on your own when you can go to a rehabilitation center where they can ease you into it and they're experts at it? Basically, you don't have to do anything but show up, okay, and be a part of their program.
Right. And a big part of that, as I was doing the research on this and debunking, figuring out which myths we should debunk and which facts we should give today, a big part of the detoxing is about the nutrition and counseling. And I think if you open opioid crisis into a bigger crisis in the country, it's mental health.
Yeah, I would say that's where it would be for those that are addicted, no doubt. You know, the key is prevention, right? But we now have a crisis, so we've got to deal with people who are addicted. But
Right.
the main thing is prevention. And so we're instilling, if you will, different abilities now. You can genetically test to see if people have tolerance for opioids, whether they're high metabolizers, because if they are, just with a normal dose, you can kill somebody potentially, like children. If they're hypermetabolizers, they'll take that. They'll take a drug that then can hypermetabolize it to morphine, and high levels of morphine can cause respiratory depression. That's how you die generally from opioid use. You use respiratory depression and or inability to control. You throw up, you aspirate because you're not awake, because you're depressed. You're not breathing, you're not awake. And that's why people die from opioids. So how do you do that? You genetically test to see what their tolerance is or whether they're predisposed for this phenomenon. And then you do toxicology. So if you're going to prescribe opioids, certainly in the pain medicine area, but I believe any surgeon should be tox testing patients. And you know, it varies about who's doing that and why we would do it. But until we get a grip on it and we use cutting edge technology to look at patients and determine, is that patient that I'm about to operate on toxicology screen, are they already on opioids? You need to know that as a provider. So I think that, you know, certainly it's medically indicated to know genetically and toxicology where they stand. So you can use that in preventing an opioid addiction.
Right. Where would somebody like me go for that testing?
Well, you could go anywhere. I mean, any physician can order it.
Okay.
But generally, pain medicine docs have protocols that they follow for that. But that is, again, on the medical side. I don't want to ignore the non-medical side because heroin, right, is cheaper than opioids. So a lot of people who can't get access to their opioids now convert to heroin, and it's highly available and fairly cheap. But in a community like this, it's very affluent. Kids are trying heroin now.
Wow.
And there are some big bad actors out there. Why are the big bad actors? Well, they become addicted to heroin. It's easy to get in Alpharetta. Kids get it because they're in an affluent community. There's peer pressure like any other drug, and they start using it. And then all of a sudden, they get a batch of heroin that's mixed in with fentanyl, which is synthetic, we use for anesthesia, but not knowing how high it is. I mean, it is so toxic and such a strong opioid that even the investigators wear gloves because even touching the powder and putting it in your tongue can kill you. It's so strong. And that's why we're starting to see these deaths. People have
Right.
intolerance, they start taking more, they're addicted, they're taking more and more. Eventually, they take so much that they have respiratory depression, they stop breathing, like I said, and or start breathing enough, vomit, aspirate, and die. So you're seeing a large number of people that are not coming from medical dispensing. So it's not the doctors really causing this. Do they contribute? Yes, they can if they're not paying attention. But all the national laws and attention to this, everybody's paying attention to opioid. It's on papers every day because just unbelievable 4,000% increase in opioid deaths over some period of short period of time.
Yep, very short period of time. And then there's, of course, what you just touched on, that pharma hasn't caused the addiction to epidemic.
Well, it's kind of like, I think this is more of an opinion, but you're going to see a lot of legislation already have and a lot of law enforcement and lawsuits over, hey, they know they're highly addictive. They were pushing them on physicians to prescribe
Right.
to patients, and are they culpable for this opioid epidemic? That's a question, right? Don't know. Don't know.
How about this term, abuse deterrent? It's a marketing term, so that's where I get to come in on this because
Yeah, but I really don't.
marketing.
Yeah, and so,
It's
you
misleading.
tell me, is it?
It's just a survey of internists, family physicians, general practitioners, and this study has showed that 46% of them think that the term means less addictive, when in fact abuse deterrent is, it means that the pill is difficult to dissolve in an injectable form.
Well.
So it's marketing.
Right.
So we always have to be aware, especially in this country, with the fact and the myths and how marketing plays into it all around your health, especially.
Right. Well, so I don't think anybody's marketing opioids now, and so there's been a big change in this process because, listen, big pharma, they make money selling opioids, right? But it's out there now, so you see a mad rush to the exit to really pushing opioids on people. So we just have to be a good physician and do our part, and as a provider also. But we can't control the illegals, the heroines, and parents that by chance are seeing physicians and they have extra pain medicine holdouts, right? That people are out selling. Honestly, so we would encourage our patients, listen, if you're not going to use all these, bring them back to us. We'll take them and dispose of them, and there are places that you can dispose of them.
Yeah, there are places that collect pills, just like there's places that collect guns. Not relating the two. But there's proven that there are more deaths from this crisis than there are murders and accidents combined.
Yeah, you just don't hear about them because
That's substantial.
It is. In this community, I mean, there are heroin deaths quite often in this triangle area north of Atlanta.
So how do we fix this crisis? What are some of your thoughts on how we're going to fix this?
Well, first, everybody needs to be aware of acutely, when you see somebody that you think is overdosing right now, call 911. Right. Okay? There's legislation here in Georgia for that.
And 911 has, what do they carry with them, the EMTs and
naloxone.
Naloxone.
Okay. And it reverses it immediately. We've had this drug around forever. We use it when people are waking up from anesthesia, and maybe we've given them a little bit too much. We use naloxone, and it's an injection. And police carry it. Of course, EMTs carry it. But there's some thought to prescribe naloxone to everybody that you give a narcotic to. Right?
Wow.
Just kind of like having an EpiPen in case you have allergies. Not a bad idea. It's kind of like because it will reverse it. It will save somebody's life like in seconds to minutes, right? Because it will reverse it. And that is the treatment acutely for getting somebody out of opioid crisis where they could die. So yes. Am I going to die? Yes, you can.
Right. Well, we've kind of compounded a lot of information in a short segment today, and we've tried to give you, the viewers, as much information as we can, coming from a healthcare expert and coming from a marketer of, products and services. That's been my niche my whole life. There's seek treatment. Don't be embarrassed by the seeking mental health care. I'm a big advocate and want to grow more into the importance of mental health in this country.
But you're right. So the crisis is multifold. You have the medical side of it, then you have the illegal side of it. And all you can do is help one another. And being parts of focus groups helps too. But just to know that I think most of us can recognize when somebody's obtunded to some degree. That's easier. It's just when people they have intolerance, but they can be addicted too because they passed intolerance. They're taking the medication. Help somebody out. It's not an embarrassment anymore. I understand that it's a mental health problem and seek treatment.
And it's a national, international problem as well. While we're focused in the triangle in Georgia because it happens to be the 11th largest state or issue of this. Georgia does. But Georgia also has an amnesty law. And I tell you, if you're watching this from a different part of the country, look into what your amnesty law is. But do you want to shed some light on what our Georgia's amnesty law is?
Well, if you think somebody's been obtunded and for whatever reason, then calling 911, then you're protected under Georgia law. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and there may be certain circumstances that apply to that, but look it up, Georgia amnesty law for overdoses, because you're going to save a life, and that's why they give you amnesty. So call 911 for that person. They're not going to call. That's the best treatment.
Right. So seek help, call 911. If you're worried about the ramifications on that person legally, look up Georgia's amnesty law. There's a website for that. It's we'll probably put it up on the link, but it's https://dph.georgia.gov/emergency help for opioid overdoses. And we'll put that in there too. But this has been kind of a grim but very important topic that we wanted to bring to you. Am I going to die from opioids? Yes, you can. You can be easily addicted. But then they also, flip side, do serve a purpose for many adults with some chronic pain or with
and children, anybody of all ages. That's right. So they have their place.
So thank you for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed this. We do want to bring you, as I say, I think it's a repeat every week. We want to bring you content that's important and valuable and educational to you. I'd like a little bit of entertaining factors in there. You've got an expert here. So what else can we help you dispel myths about? What can we tell you if you're going to die from the... Of course, we're all going to die in the end. I don't really want to talk about that.
We can't get out of here alive.
Can't get out of here alive. Death and taxes. Taxes are kind of coming up soon, right?
Right.
I'm usually bad at that.
So anyway, thank you for watching today. Let us know what we can talk to you about. Please reach out to us. Give us feedback. Like us here, follow us, and see you next week.
Next week, we'll be back.